Hi, Ruby. This is Fiona Thompson with Black Lives Now, and this is the Roundtable. I'm here with my co-host, John Alexis.
How you
and
doing?
Hi.
Our guest for today is 17th Circuit candidate for Public Defender, Ruby Green. How are you today, Ruby?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me here today.
Very good. So, we got to speak to you a few weeks ago in relation to, what's going on, the movement, Black Lives, and what's happening everywhere. We really wanted to focus on justice. And I want to just have our audience just hear your story. It was really compelling. You were telling us about your family and what had you jump into the game.
Well, for those of you who do not know me, it's Ruby Lenora Green. I am running to be the public defender in Broward County. A lot of people don't know that, public defenders, you have to run actually for an election, but it's the assistant public defenders that, you don't actually have to run. And these are the attorneys that work under you. And I currently work at the Broward County Public Defender's Office. I am from Broward County. I'm from Kaya City, which everybody else knows it as Pompano Beach because it's a little town in Pompano. We have 3 jails that are unsuccessfully used to deter crime in my city. And I grew up, I'm one of 15 children, the first and only to graduate and go to college. I actually had to be the sole document signer in my household because my mom couldn't read or write. She had to leave school early to pick beans, cottons, and strawberries in the fields. And I did not think that I was going to be able to, be an attorney or go to college or do anything like that. I was told that I was going to be a 2-cent hooker living on the streets with 10 kids. And I knew nothing about college. I was sold for drugs at the age of 13. And I literally thought that I was going to work at McDonald's for the rest of my life until I had a wonderful guidance counselor who convinced me to actually go to college and, open my eyes that there was something as such. I heard people talking about it at school, but I never thought that that was something that I would be able to do because, I didn't grow up with money. And my mom had a lot of kids and we only had like a 2-bedroom house with 1 bathroom, and the house was probably maybe 500 square feet, if that. And we just didn't have the resources that I thought that you would need in order to be able to be successful in life. But I ended up going to college. I graduated college within 3 out of the 4 years as cum laude. And then I went on to law school, and I graduated law school early as well. I graduated law school 2 years out of the 3 years that you're supposed to be there. And the entire time in my law school career, I worked at the public defender's office. I was an intern. I was a regular volunteer. I was an investigator. And then prior to me graduating from law school, I moved up and became a certified legal intern from the Supreme Court, which allowed me to practice with under like a supervisor or under another practicing attorney at the public defender's office. So I was able to try cases there. And, I worked there actually after I passed the bar. And then I, wanted to come home. So I transferred here, and I've been working at the Broward County Public Defender's Office since 2012. And I became the youngest supervisor and chief of county court that the office has ever had. And, while I was working at the public defender's office, well, I'm still working there, I noticed that we needed change. Like there were some things that administration really, wanted us to do that I didn't think that we should be doing. Like as a chief, they didn't want me to go into the courtrooms, and they didn't want me to train the attorneys. And I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. Why aren't we training the attorneys? The public has no faith in what we do as it is. So they need someone who's experienced to go into the courtrooms and show the attorneys how to be zealous advocates. Because when I went into the courtrooms, by the way, I didn't listen to what administration said. I still did what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. But it was me really showing the attorneys how you need to represent your clients. Even though we were representing people who are charged with misdemeanors, it was a situation where someone can still go to jail for 364 days. Even a day in jail could cost somebody their job. So we don't need anyone that's just going to sit up there and meet, greet, and plead them out just so that they can have a record and just so you can get this case over with. That's not the type of environment that we need to be training for the attorneys. So that's why I'm running, because I know that we need much needed change. And it's more than that. It's the caseloads and making sure that we're able to keep experienced attorneys. But I'll get into more of that once we start our conversation. But this is the gist of why I'm running, because we need to put the public faith back into the legal system when it comes to public defenders.
Wow, hitting the nail right on the head. What a compelling story. I mean, coming from nothing, and a lot of women give up. And I'm so glad you had somebody to grab your hand and say, push you forward. So that's amazing.
I appreciate that. I know, trust me, I know at this point, I always think about it, and it's like, and that's why I think it's important to give back. And I, mentor at schools. I actually, as the president of the Teacher Rated Bar Association a few years ago, it's the only Black bar association in Broward County. I created this street law program that was a bridge between the Bar Association and Dillard High School, because they had a really high rate of, there are people of color, our kids, not graduating. And so, we wanted to show them that, hey, you can do it. There are people that look like you who have made it, and you can be something. We don't necessarily want you to become an attorney, but we want you to understand that, you can look like us and still move forward, even if you've been through some type of struggles and obstacles in your life.
Right. So you get elected. What's day one, the first thing you're planning on doing?
The first thing that I need to do is audit the books. And a lot of people are like, oh, we need to figure out all these other things first and where people are going. No, we need to audit the books. And I'm gonna tell you why we need to audit the books. Funding is important when it comes to the Broward County Public Defender's Office. We had gotten an email a few months ago, saying that Carlos Martinez, which is from a different circuit, and Catherine Fernandez Rondo, which is also a state attorney from a different circuit, the 11th Circuit, which is in Miami, they were going to Tallahassee to fight for their people to get more money. And all we got was an email. And I'm like, why did we just get an email? Why aren't you going to Tallahassee to fight for your staff and to fight for your attorneys to get more funding? We have a very high turnover rate. The high turnover rate at the public defender's office is insane. We cannot keep the experienced attorneys, and we need experienced attorneys at the office. Why? Because we can't just keep moving people up to felony, and people who are in felony are facing 5 to life in prison. We have attorneys at the office right now who do not feel comfortable with representing their clients, who do not feel comfortable with going to trial, who, have not even had their own felony trials. So I charge you, if you were in a trial right now and you were charged with a life felony and your attorney has never had a felony case trial in their life, would you feel comfortable with them representing you? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't even feel comfortable. They don't even feel comfortable themselves. So that's a problem. And we're not promoting criminal justice reform that way. We need to make sure that we're advocating in Tallahassee. So my advocating in Tallahassee is going to be, twofold. It's going to be making sure that we get the funding that we need. And it's going to be making sure that we're going to our state legislatures and whoever we need to talk about criminal justice reform. We have the sentencing disparities, and we play a role in sentencing disparities because we, like I said, explain the whole situation. We're meet, greet, and pleading, and people don't have the experience. They don't have the training that they need. And we need to somehow keep our experienced attorneys that actually want to stay there. By boosting the morale, we can, get the funding that they need.
So what's the biggest drive that has people leave? Just the lack of funding and, poor morale?
It's morale, because I'm going to say that it's morale more than funding. Listen, a lot of people at our office do not mind, and I'm one of them. I held 2, sometimes 3 jobs while working at the public defender's office. That means I'm going to court every single day. I'm filing motions and stuff in the afternoons. I'm also taking depositions in the afternoons. Sometimes I have to go to court in the afternoons, and sometimes we don't even get to get lunch, and, visiting clients in the evening. And then after all of that, we have to go and do a night job, but I do it because I love what I do. Can I go out and can I get a 6-figure job? Yes, I could have been left and had a six-figure job, but I love what I do. But when you feel unappreciated at the job in which you're in, which a lot of people do, they treat you as you're disposable. So when you leave, or when you say you want to leave the office, or if you know, like you're bringing up things to the office and into administration, and they're not hearing you, such as, whether or not we need training and whether or not we need more diverse. These are some things that I brought up to administration, like, hey, why do we only have two Black men working in this office in the trenches when the boxes are full of them? They don't want to do anything. Go fight it out with some other person. What do you mean? You're the boss. You should be able to say, we have other diverse Black people who are just as qualified as those who are not of color, who, they fit the mold. Why can't we hire them? These are when people don't listen to you and they treat you as if you're just a warm body and you can just go on through the system and they can replace you. That's when people start to feel like they don't love and they don't have the passion for the job that they normally would have had you just, hey, had everybody feel comfortable in, having an open door and listening to people and what they have to say. We would keep people that way. It's all about our morale and funding, because people will sacrifice the funding if you love where you work. I'm just saying that that's real. And that's been me, and it's always been me, because I love what I do, and that's why I have never left.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. That's, I mean, I knew it was bad, but I mean, wow. Like,
yeah.
So, I mean, it seems silly to ask, but I will. So obviously this plays a role in the high level of Black and brown people that you see getting locked up.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to have people that look like you sometimes in order to understand. Like, I, as a chief of county court, I literally was down to the only Black person, and I was having to move her up because we lost more experienced attorneys, so I had to move her up. So I literally went to administration, was just like, this can't be. I don't have any more Black people in my group. I need to hire more people of color, because it's insane that we are the public defender's office and we're not diverse. And I'm not saying that we don't have any good attorneys that are not of color that represent people. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that we need people who understand where we come from so that they can represent you to the fullest extent, because they know what it is like to not have water. They know what it is like to not have a job or have a family member who doesn't have a job. They know what it is like to have a family member who suffers from a substance abuse problem, and on and on and on. We had a few cases that came into the office a few months ago during mango season, and the state attorneys charge our guys with burglary of a dwelling for mangoes. And I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? Like, I grew up off of eating mangoes. Like, sometimes that would be my breakfast, lunch, dinner. We would go to everybody's mama's house in trees and take their mangoes off their trees. And just imagine facing, prison time for that. Because if you're charged with a burglary dwelling for stepping in somebody's yard to take a mango out of the tree, yeah, it could be stealing, and it's a burglary, because you're sometimes these yards are fenced in. And burglary of a dwelling, you automatically score prison on that. And some people, if you have certain designations, is what I call it, you have certain designations, that's a mandatory minimum of 15 years that you could be scoring just for taking a mango out of a tree. And it hits home. But if you have people that look like you and understand where you come from, and understand that, hey, this is someone's lunch, this is someone's dinner, like, why are we charging them to the fullest extent, to the highest charge possible on for a burglary dwelling, on just for taking a mango out of a tree, as opposed to, I understand people don't want you in your yard, give them a trespass or something like that, but a burglary dwelling where you automatically score prison is absolutely absurd to me.
Gotcha. Is there any way moving forward, were you to win the election, to work with whoever is elected as the new state attorney? Is there any crossover there ever, or is that always separate?
Want to know what it is? There is, or it could be crossover. To date, there have been a very adversarial relationship between the state attorney and the public defender that we have now. And I truly blame it on our office. Our office does not want to have any type of relationship with the state attorney's office. All they do is send letters to everybody. And I don't think that sending letters to people is effective. I think that you need to be in people's faces. You need to go to their office and you need to meet with them and or pick up the phone and call them. I don't have any issue. Listen, I go to court and I'm respected because I know what I'm doing. And, the prosecutors will respect me. And, sometimes I can get what I want that way. But and sometimes I'm very, very friendly and nice with my prosecutors, only because I don't see why not. But the problem is that on the outside, people are like, "Oh no, you shouldn't be that way with your prosecutors." That's not true. The people that are the most powerful in the courtroom is the prosecutor. But I can tell you that if I'm in trial, they will get the wrath of me. But I can shake your hand at the end of the day. So it shouldn't be a situation where we're just going at each other's necks all the time. On certain times there's a time to fight, and like I said, especially when we're in trial and when we're in motions and stuff like that, yeah, we fight like cats and dogs. But in the courtroom, when we're trying to work situations out between our clients, mind you, the prosecutors are the only people in the courtrooms that can waive minimum mandatories. So if I can get a prosecutor to understand what it's like to be in my client's shoes, for a day, and that waives their minimum mandatory, oh, so be it. I'm going to be nice to them. But I don't understand why we can't have a relationship with the prosecutor. And I know all of the people that are running. Actually, I have a relationship. I work with all of the ones that are running at this point in time. And I don't see that I'll have a problem with going to their door or calling them if I have an issue.
Awesome. Like, as far as what's going on, the uprisings, everything that you see happening across the country, what are your thoughts on that? How will or has that affect what you think about in regards to justice across the board, or speak into that?
Well, I mean, I think it's necessary. I think that the criminal justice system for a long time, it was used as a mechanism to keep us down, and that's people of color. That it was used to take away our basic rights. As we can see, we are facing the Amendment 4 issue. Our people can't vote. We at first we thought we won the war. And then, there was a stay that was put on the order that Judge Hinkle put out in May, and now we're back to square one. But the criminal justice system was not meant and was not built to protect people of color or people who are poor. And I think that everything that's going on now, is something that we need to continue to do. And I think that's the only way that they're going to listen. We need to protest, we need to march. And it's important because our ancestors fought so hard for everything that we have here today. Even though it seems like it's not much, we can do a lot more. And I truly think that if it wasn't for George Floyd, and Trayvon Martin, and Mike Brown, all these other situations that has happened in recent years, then we wouldn't have gotten as far as it is now. I know that there's many talks about criminal justice reform that's being put forth in the legislature and this session. And I think that it's important, even with the public defender's office. We need to be out there showing the community that we are in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. I know I've marched several times for Black Lives Matters and for attorneys around the courthouse as well. I know several offices in the state of Florida that were the public defender's office march in solidarity with Black Lives Matters. In fact, our office was told not to march for Black Lives Matter. It was insane. They scared so many people from our office from marching in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. We wanted to do a group of attorneys that, wanted to show that, we understand. We wanted to start at the jail and, make sure that we had a presence at the jail to show them that, we care about the situations on hand and everything that's going on. And I don't understand why our office told us not to, but of course, I didn't listen to the office and I still went out and did it anyway, because it's important. The public already doesn't have faith in what we do. And we already know that race plays an important part in policing practices and policies and procedures. And, there's an implicit bias. There is an inherent fear of, Black people by police officers. And, how can we not, push that message across? And I think that that's important. That's something that we need to be constantly doing. And we need to do it even after it stops trending in social media. We need to continue this fight.
So you're running against two other opponents doing this primary. What makes you the best candidate?
I'm the best candidate because it's several reasons. I'm the only person in this particular race that's actually a public defender and working in the churches. That means going to courts, filing motions, taking depositions, seeing clients in custody. I have a caseload. Nobody else has a caseload. No one else of my opponents have tried cases within the last 20 years. And that's a problem. We need someone who knows what they're doing, who's a true advocate and who knows their way around the courtroom, not just managerial skills. Like anybody can take over an office. You got somebody who's managing the budget already. You got, people in place, as supervisors and such, and you have the attorneys already. Anybody can basically come in and be a manager, but it takes a true leader to be an advocate. And that's what I am. And that's what I have over any of those other candidates.
Great. Wow. Well, a big thing that came up from our conversation that we've been asking everyone is about qualified immunity, particularly when it comes to cops. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't believe in it. I truly believe that we need to get rid of qualified immunity. Cops shouldn't just have it, but we know that has been a mechanism that has been used in order to get cops off. And for a long time in Broward, we have not been punishing cops for killing people of color. And it's just that every single time that I get a report, we get reports from police departments that say whether or not an officer is being charged in front of the grand jury or investigated in front of the grand jury for shooting somebody. We already know it's somebody that's Black, but every single time they get off. And we need to understand that, qualified immunity hurts us all. Police departments have been in charge of everything for the longest. They're in charge of their own IA investigations. Like, well, who does that? Why is that? We need a citizen review board that's going to take over for things like that. And they shouldn't have qualified immunity. They should not be able to just stand by and watch another one of their officers kill somebody in cold blood.
I'm so glad you said that, because that topic was greatly debated amongst the individuals during our larger conversation on the, during the call. I think a lot of people said, yes, we'll go along with it. But my concern is, like, how do we hold them accountable after the fact? Because, you can say anything, in passing. But so I'm glad to hear that you support it. We're working on legislation to take it to the state when session opens up in 60 or so days. We'd love to have you join us in Tallahassee.
Most definitely. I'll be there with bells on.
I love it. Because, let's be honest, we all know the facts and you just laid them out perfectly. Had it not been someone to grab your hand and show you a different path, your life could have been completely different.
Yeah, it could be. And the fact of the story is that, like, we give officers too much work beyond their scope of employment, I believe, like including us, in the Black community. We have a child that's acting up. The first thing we think of, let me call the popo, let me call the police on them. We need to stop doing that. We need to stop bringing officers into situations that they don't belong, into family matters and all of that. So we need to stop bringing them into mental health matters. The first thing that they're going to do is arrest us. And then you're going to be like, oh, and we get this all the time at the public defender's office. Oh, I didn't want them to be arrested. I just wanted the officer to come and talk to them. Like, well, what did you think was going to happen? You call the cops, they already acting rowdy with you. They definitely gonna be acting rowdy with the police officer, and they're gonna just want to arrest them and say that they're resisting, whatever that is, they're resisting, right? And so here we go with this cycle that's going on and on and on and round and round and round. And, we need to stop that cycle. We need to help ourselves stop that cycle. I mean, we need to understand that an officer is not the right people. We need some type of crisis team. If we have somebody in our family that has mental health issues and unfortunately we can't control them, we need to create, and that's one of my platforms as well, making sure that we have a holistic approach, because I truly believe that what affects one individually is going to affect us all collectively. And we need more mental health beds. So we're going to need crisis teams instead of police officers to deal with people. We're going to need more substance abuse treatment beds. We need more jobs. A lot of people don't understand that. Like, a lot of the issues that we have are because our people do not have jobs. And the criminal justice system has branded them that way. And it was meant to be that way. It has taken our people and put them in situations where they have to go out and take baby formula from Walmart. They have to go out and take, baby clothes or something like that from the stores, because we labeled them as criminals. And now they have to check that little box on every single job application, and they can't provide for their families. So you wonder why there's this never ending cycle of them going in and out of custody. We need to reduce recidivism. And we can only do that by creating second chance jobs. There are plenty of places that will give opportunities to people who have, been convicted of felonies. And we need to bridge those gaps, and we need to bridge all of those resources that we have. Housing too. We have issues with housing. Why can't we work with any type of homeless alliance or housing authorities to figure out this homelessness problem, to keep people off the streets? Like, I talk to people all the time, and I'm sorry if I'm just going on, but I talk to people all the time about the issues that they would rather, call a police up for. And like, you'll have what they call a bad neighborhood, a robbery going on in a bad neighborhood. And then on the good neighborhood, you got them calling the cops because someone's outside asking for change in the median of the road. Are you kidding me? You're like, our resources are being wasted, and we have to help fix the problem. It's going to take a village, and it's only going to happen if we create a holistic approach with the public defender's office, because a lot of times at the public defender's office, we are their moms, the aunts, the uncles, the doctors, the social workers, the case manager. We are all in one when it comes to representing a client. So we also need social workers, to help us out here to find placement for people to go. So we're not creating that.
Let me just ask you this, as far as, so we know what the system has to do. Is what work, and you mentioned some of that, but what work does the community within itself get to do to avoid some of that? Just because that's going to be the question that folks ask. Like, well, if they just took care of their families, and if, you know the stories that people make up and say. So do you have anything to say along those lines? You spoke about it a bit, like if your kid's acting up, don't call the cops. But if you have anything more into that direction, I'd love to hear.
Right. We need counselors. Like, Henderson Behavioral Health is a great resource that people don't even think about. They help with outpatient, they help with inpatient, people who are suffering from, psychotic attacks and stuff like that. All you have to do is go sign them up, go sign them up to go. They might need to be inpatient. Bark IRT, same situation. If they have drug problems, they treat you on a sliding scale. We need to make sure that the public knows about these types of resources that can assist us, as opposed to putting our people in jail all the time. We're being an accessory to the fact.
Ms. Green, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Thank you for your time, by the way.
No problem.
One of the things you talked about was being underfunded, and you said part of that is due to the auditing of the books for the public defender's office. Now, the way that the public defender gets funding is done basically through Congress. Congress allocates funds for public defenders. What are you going to do to get Congress, or who do you have in mind to lobby to get funding for the public defender?
It's threefold. Actually, we are planning on lobbying through the county as well. Not only the county, but I don't know if you all have heard, but we also get money through the clerk's office. The clerk's office owes us over $12.8 million. And it has already been audited. It has already been said that they owe us this money. No one, not one person from our office has attempted to get us that money. $12.8 million is a ton of money that we can use in order to assist with resources and keeping the attorneys and staff that we need. So not only
Okay.
going with the state and, asking our legislatures for any type of bump and raise, in which they can do, but it's going to be also, I've spoken with other public defender's office, not only in this state, but in this country, where they get grants. We can get a grant writer. Why not?
Some people would say that you would get blocked by people like Governor Ron DeSantis, who wouldn't be willing to, lobby for you, or he wouldn't be interested in pursuing the money that's owed to you from the clerk's office. How do you get around that barrier?
Yeah, it's gonna be grants, but don't worry, I will sue until the sky is green. That's my thing. There's no way that you're gonna prevent us from getting the monies that is owed to us. It's owed to us. And so the only reason that the clerk's office hasn't turned it over is because, and from my understanding is that we haven't responded to the clerk's office is audit person or whatever, and have we done our own audit or something like that. It was, because I personally spoke with them myself. But if we're owed the money, we're gonna get it. We're entitled to that money. Governor DeSantis can't stop us from getting money from the clerk's office if we're owed that money. They're to pay that money out to us. It's the matter of who is actually going to advocate and go and get it. Are we going to have to sue them, or is it going to take a sit down for us to agree on the amount that's owed? Because they have a separate audit that was done. We need to, apparently we have a separate audit that was done. They haven't had that audit yet. So we need to come to a conclusion as to how much money is owed and get that money. And
Okay.
It's probably not going to happen until after we get a new clerk, someone who, can understand as to what's going on, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, that seems like a difficult situation to handle, but it looks like you have some sort of plan that you have lined up to at least address it. Now, my next question for you is a statistic from PAFS shows that in 1994, 1 of every 3 cases was a felony case between 1994 and 2008. And these are public defender cases. So that means that the public defender is actually probably understaffed. They don't have enough investigative staff to pursue all these cases. So you got the public defender picking and choosing the cases they can handle. And what's happening is minorities are getting felony charges just because they can't get, a good defense. How do you plan on addressing that?
And that's something that truly, truly, truly needs to be addressed. And it should have been addressed. I want to say that we actually have a bulk of the cases that enter the criminal justice system. And I know 1 in every 3, it sounds like a lot, but I want to say that we're pushing on 2 in every 3. A lot of people don't understand what it takes to be a public defender, and the caseloads that we have and how we administer, or how justice is administered. But as the public defender, we have to get the money. We have to get the money to increase our staff. We have to be able to investigate things. We have to be able to train the attorneys. We have to be able to show them how to be zealous advocate. And that's only going to come with funding. And it's important because for the longest of times, and so many movies have been made, so many skits have been made about public defenders, so many stereotypes about public defenders and them being overworked and underpaid. So many news articles have been, made about the whole situation. And it's going to be all about funding. That's why you need someone that is going to be able and willing to go to our legislatures, our state reps, to ask them to pass bills on our behalves, to ask them to pass bills when it comes to funding on our behalf, so that we can get people to understand that criminal justice reform is real and, it needs to happen now.
Okay. So, yeah, I agree. Criminal justice reform does need to happen. What do you think do you have a number, a magic number that you have in mind for funding for the public defender's office? Like if you were to go to, I don't know, Representative Lauren Book, for example, and you were like, hey, look, I need someone to advocate for funding for us for the public defender's office. Do you have an amount, or, what numbers are you looking for?
Right now, we're at $23 million, and it's insufficient with the amount of attorneys, the amount of staff that we have. We have about just close to 110 attorneys, and we have close to about the same amount in the staff. And, our staff, is quite underfunded as well. So I would be asking for at least $50 million.
Okay, so 50 million. And what if you had a fairy godmother and she was like, "Hey, I'll make your wish come through right now," come true rather. Sorry. What would be the perfect amount of staff for you to have?
We have, I would say the perfect amount of staff when it comes to attorneys. It would probably be about 100, and instead of 110, maybe about 130.
Okay, that's very good to know. Now,
And I can tell you why, because of some of the ways in which the attorneys are managed is very poorly. Some of our attorneys, in which we used to have a little bit better of a system beforehand, but some of our attorneys have at least 4 courtrooms to go to be in at the same time. That's ineffective assistance of counsel. You have to be in one courtroom at one time, and you have about 25 clients in that courtroom that's really, really grabbing for your attention. You can't speak to any one of them because you're being called to 3 other courtrooms at the same time.
that's
But if we
incredible.
can place someone, right, it's insane. If we can place someone into each of those courtrooms, as opposed to having, those attorneys spread out, then that'll fix the problem of, them being overworked and running all around like chickens with their heads cut off to other courtrooms.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's incredible that you guys are even handling that. The stress must be very intense.
Yeah. And the fact that I truly believe that some of our supervisors and chiefs should also have cases. So I'm not increasing the number of attorneys drastically. It's only about 20 more that I'm saying that we probably need. But I don't understand why we can't go into the courtrooms and also represent people. We're attorneys first. We might be supervisors and chiefs, but as a chief, I was going into the courtrooms. I sat second chair with my attorneys in trials. I sat second chair with my attorneys in motions, because you have to show them how it's done. How are you to be, a lead attorney and they don't see you in practice? If you don't use it, you lose it. And that's why a lot of our office has a bad morale, because they see that the supervisors and the chief have absolutely no cases. And so they think that, they sit around the desk and fiddle their thumbs all the time. And, so somebody that's really busting their butts, running around with, to courtroom, to motion, to trial, and you are doing nothing, how is that going to make you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as soon as you get elected, say you win, how soon do you think you can secure funding, or what's a realistic timeline on that? The reason I ask that is because there's usually throughout the U.S., there's about 500,000 people that are detained at any point before even going to trial. So they're already in jail, and they may not even be convicted of anything. They may not even be convicted of a crime. They're just sitting there waiting to be serviced because they can't afford their own personal attorney. So it's very time sensitive that you guys secure funding so that you guys can increase your staff and then you can address this problem. How soon do you think you can secure funding if you're elected?
I'm giving the clerk's office no more than 60 days to turn over their funds. That's for the clerk's office. For the to advocate in Tallahassee, is going to have to be the next time that they're in session for those issues, because we have to meet with state reps and other legislatures in order to get some bills about pay raises for government attorneys and stuff like that. So
the bill has to be sponsored. Yeah,
right. So the next cycle for Congress and for the clerk's office for the $12.8 million, I'm giving them no more than 60 days before we start suit.
Okay, that's amazing. And that's good to know. Well, it looks like you have a lot of stuff ahead of you. Let me see here if I missed anything. A lot of people say that lobbying is more important than marching with, Black Lives Matter, because, they say it's a show so that people can get elected, not you in particular, but, police officers and other people that are trying to get elected. Do you think that lobbying is an important factor into making actual progress, lobbying the legislators?
I think that they're both important equally. I think that lobbying is important because you have legislatures that don't care about what people do out on the streets and the issues that they're marching for. But I think that we need to continue to march. I think we need to continue to protest. I think we need to be in people's spaces. I think that that's the only thing that people hear. And that's the only thing that people understand when, you know, like me, you get media attention when you're out there protesting and marching. And, you know, maybe the media doesn't care about the issues in which you're protesting or marching for, but at some point, people are starting to realize like, hey, they're on to something here. Something's happening. Why are they still out here? When are they going to go away? And the fact of the matter is that we're not going to go away. And that's what people have to understand. And that's what we should be doing. We should be out there marching. We should be out protesting, lobbying. That's some stuff behind closed doors. Nobody, they can easily tell us no. But if we're sitting out there on your front lawn and not leaving, you know, then you're going to have to listen.
Absolutely. I think that it's both. You need it's two parts to it, on the front end and the back end. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. Siada, did you have any other questions for Ms. Green?
I do. What are your thoughts on the bail system, cash bail system? Do you think there's a need for reform with that?
Oh, most definitely. Listen, New Jersey has a system. They haven't completely dismantled the cash bail system, but they have reduced it drastically, and they have a percentage rate of people returning to court not having any issues. I believe their percentage rate, if I'm not mistaken, like 94%. That's pretty high. You know, you letting people out. We already know that the cash bail system is another mechanism to keep people of color and to keep people who are poor out, you know, into the criminal justice system or the criminal injustice system. You know, like it was meant for the rich. You know, you can easily get out if you have people or money that can pay for you to get out. But we already know that people of color, we don't normally have that. Why do you think that we have public defenders? Well, public defenders have a majority of the cases because there's a lot of us in the poverty line that cannot afford to hire someone, let alone pay to get out of jail. And I always like to use the movie Women of Brewster Place because it showed it was a good story on how Oprah Winfrey had to pay for her son by using her house as collateral in order for him to be able to get out of jail. We don't own homes anymore. We don't own homes like that. You know, we can't use our houses for collateral. We use every little pinch and penny and dime that we can think of in order to try and bond our people out. And we end up losing our homes, and we end up losing, you know, food for the next month, or our lights and water. You know, we need to get rid of it. It's not meant for, you know, what it's supposed. Well, we already know that it's supposed to secure you to coming to court, but that's not what happens. You know,
so we end up instead.
Yeah, we end up having people just sitting in custody on a $25 bond while we as taxpayers are paying $146 per day per person that's sitting in custody. It's counterproductive.
So what's your alternative suggestion to a cash bail system?
We already have so many other resources. We have pretrial. We have different levels of pretrial. You can be on house arrest if the judge wants you to be, meaning that you can only go to, like, you know, school, work, or church, or, you know, go to the grocery store during certain times. You can do that. We have another level of pretrial where you only have to call in twice per week. We have the resources available at our, you know, at the palms of our hands, but we're not using them to the extent that we need to use them.
Wow. Excellent. And
one second. Ms. Green, while you're on the subject, I just had a question. What do you think would be one of the most significant legislative changes that state representatives could do to help Black individuals in Broward County? Do you have a suggestion on, like, what would make a difference with the influx of African Americans to jail? Something that would change that?
My legislative change would literally be getting rid of mandatory minimums. A lot of people don't understand that a lot of our people, you know, a lot of crimes have mandatory minimums attached to it. There are certain ways that you can get mandatory minimums. You can either commit a specific crime and that mandatory minimum follows it, and the only person that can waive it is the state. I think we need to get rid of that. But we also have situations where, you know, people come out of prison and then all of a sudden there's a mandatory minimum attached to a charge because of the length of time that they've gotten out of prison, and then a new crime was committed. And oftentimes it's for stupid stuff like, you know, picking mangoes out of a tree. You know, we need to get rid of that stuff like that. We obviously need to have a tracker for sentencing disparities, but that doesn't go into, you know, the legislative aspect. Most often not for me, it's going to be about mandatory minimums, because our real issue is the racial you know, issues that we have when it comes to policing. That's the
Yeah.
main issue that we have. And that's something that the legislation can, you know, do. They can't really force police departments to, you know, have implicit bias training, but that's something that we're going to have to do locally. And we're going to have to talk to these police departments and make sure that they're following certain things, because we already know that they have a code. Come on, let's be real. We know they have a code, you know, so we're just going to have to do a lot of things locally. But legislatures, you know, can definitely get rid of mandatory minimums for us, and they can, you know, the qualified immunity thing, of course, they can help us out with that. But when it comes
Yeah.
to implicit bias and the inherent fear that people have of people of color, or officers have of people of color, you know, that's something that we're going to have to focus on locally.
Absolutely. And thank you for that answer. Like throughout history, the biggest significant changes always came through Black history and stuff is through legislator, you know, like the civil rights and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's why I asked that. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah.
So we've got a few minutes left before we wrap. Make your pitch to our members, because we're pushing for voting August 18th for the primary, early voting, mail-in, and then of course walk-in if needed. You know,
I want to know, I really, really, really am happy that I had an opportunity to speak with you all. It's, you know, a different time that we're in right now. We're in a pandemic of, you know, COVID-19, and then we're in a fight against racial equities. So we need to pick the best people for these jobs. A lot of people don't understand that, you know, right now we have all the constitutional offices open and up for grabs. And that should spark something in our minds when we say constitutional offices, because these are our fundamental rights that are at play. And, you know, to think of it, you know, these are the people that are going to be dealing with things that affects us every single day. So we need to choose people. Please read up on each and every one of the candidates. You know, I think that's important to do that. And it's important to choose people who are for the cause. And, you know, I really love to believe that that's me. I am taking on volunteers to, you know, help me at the polls. Of course, we're going to be social distancing. And, you know, we're just going to be holding up signs. So we're really not going to give anything out to people at the time, but we really want, you know, people to understand that we are here. We're not going anywhere. I actually will be the first woman in the history of Broward County and the first Black woman in the history of the state to have this position. You know, and not saying that people should vote for me because I'm Black, you know, or because I'm a woman, but it's because I'm the best person for the job. I am, like I said before, the only person that's working in the trenches on behalf of others and their rights. And, you know, we don't need anyone to public pretend anymore. We don't need any public pretenders to make it seem as if, you know, we're going out doing all these great things, that the office is not in shams, that the office is great. We don't need anyone like that. We need someone that's not in denial, that's going to tell you like it is, and that's going to affect the change that's necessary. And that's me. So at this point in time, please, 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 if you have your vote by mail ballot, circle my name or fill it in. And then starting on Saturday is going to be the first day of early voting for us here in Broward, August 8th. And it's going to last until August 16th. And then the election day is August 18th. So vote green for change to be seen.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you. You have an amazing story, and
Thank you.
just want to give you a chance to speak to our members. But good luck on the election, and thank you for joining us here at the Roundtable.
Thank you all. It was nice meeting you or seeing you again, actually.
Nice meeting you too. Definitely. Good luck on your campaign.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you later.